The students of BC want to see you publicly commit to protecting the 2% tuition cap. Our predecessors fought to protect these caps, and if the government won't protect affordability, then the student union movement of today is more than ready and willing to fight for it again.
Yes, so some very recent news. This morning, we're recording this on January 19th, 2026. This morning in South Surrey at Jessie Sunner's office. Jessie Sunner is an MLA and also the Minister for Post-Secondary Education here in BC. The ABCS, the Alliance of BC Students, held a press conference at her office demanding that the province maintain the 2% cap on tuition. The opening remarks came from Kevin Root, who's the chairperson for the Alliance of BC Students. It's also important to note that the CSU is a member of the Alliance of BC Students.
I'm standing here today along students representing student unions from across BC to sound the alarm on the government's review of the public post-secondary education system. The province has been trying to concoct a narrative that the system somehow is administration bloat. Nothing could be further from the truth. The truth is, the government hasn't meaningfully increased funding to the public post-secondary system in decades. So in 2011, they started encouraging BC universities, colleges and institutions to fund the necessary growth in administration and student services by preying on young international students who are willing to pay exorbitant tuition fees to study here in BC. And now that the federal government has put a limit on how many international students they can exploit, the provincial government is facing a clear choice. Commit public funding for the public post-secondary education system, or make devastating cuts and unaffordable tuition increases.
Solomon Yi-Kieran, who's the Vice President External for the Alma Mater Society, the AMS at UBC, described and sort of went over how the 2% cap that we have is a result of hard-won student advocacy that happened in the early 2000s, and that any tuition increase would be a direct attack on students.
And I'm proud to stand here representing 60,000 UBC students alongside other student unions as we protest this government's disastrous review. For decades, the government has underfunded BC's post-secondary system. In 1979, 90% of post-secondary operating budgets were provided by the government. Now, that's just 33%. Now that BC's post-secondary system can't continue exploiting international students for high tuitions, rather than fund their fair share of the operating costs to keep the system afloat, the government would rather double down on austerity, commit to no new funding, and put the burden on the shoulders of students. Students shouldn't have to bear the brunt of the government's neglect. Let us be very clear. Any changes to the tuition limit policy would be a direct attack on students. When Gordon Campbell scrapped the 2% tuition cap back in 2002, tuition rates soared. BC went from having one of Canada's lowest average tuitions to one of Canada's highest, with average tuitions doubling in just 3 years. When that happened, the student movement united. Our predecessors organized province-wide protests and laid the groundwork for a province-wide student strike, because we knew that the government had to bring back the tuition cap.
Good morning, my name is Jessie, and I'm the Vice President External of the Simon Fraser Student Society. Students have come here today with very clear demands. No mergers, no tuition increases, no service cuts, and no loss of student representation. And we're calling on British Columbians to stand with us. Protect our students, protect our schools, build a stronger workforce and an international reputation for British Columbia. Thank you.
When it comes to what the consultation process looked like for these student organizations, this is what they had to say.
When the government announced the review at the end of November, they told us they wanted to wrap up consultation in 6 weeks and wrap up the review for the entire post-secondary education sector by March. They also told us the review would consider all options except one, and that is more public funding from the government. Like I said before, this review is dangerous. It threatens the accessibility, stability, and quality of BC's public post-secondary education system. The true intention of this hastily thrown together review is to justify predetermined conclusions that the ministry has already made. These conclusions range from making dangerous cuts, raising tuition, to mass layoffs.
And so I've got a question. The review is set to end after the budget is released. What does that say about the process of this review, and do you think it's more performative than anything?
Absolutely, it's a great question. The question is whether the review is more performative than actual valid. Absolutely, that is why we're here, and what we're believing is that the government has already decided what they're doing. They've already hinted that through the process, through the review process. We have had opportunities, albeit only 90 minutes. We've had the opportunity to give our feedback in the process itself. The process seems very predetermined.
Tuition is already expensive enough, groceries and rents make it worse, and students can't afford for tuition to double. And since 2005, the tuition limit policy has ensured that higher education is accessible to all British Columbians, not just the wealthy and privileged. And in a world where the cost of living has skyrocketed and young people are being priced out left, right, and center, the tuition limit policy is one of the last protections students have against runaway costs and rising financial burdens. But instead of investing in and ensuring that education is accessible to all, this government is flirting with doubling down on the austerity that has put post-secondary institutions in this precarious situation in the first place. Instead of treating post-secondary education as a public good, this government is choosing to treat universities like for-profit corporations and is asking students to bail them out. Students aren't the only ones who are hurt by the loss of the 2% tuition cap. The province simply can't afford it either. Currently, BC's colleges and universities attract students from Ontario and Alberta more than any other provinces in Canada, largely because our average tuitions are thousands of dollars a year lower than theirs. Drastically increasing BC's tuition means making BC universities less attractive and driving away out-of-province domestic students. Just look at how Quebec's post-secondary institutions are faring after they jacked up out-of-province tuition. In the short term, this just exasperates the funding crisis our colleges and universities are going through, and in the long term, it will lead to brain drain and a smaller skilled workforce. It's clear that passing the debts of universities onto students is not a sustainable solution. We need to see a new injection of government funding to maintain programs, expand student housing, and provide key services to students.
So the main takeaway from this press conference and really this student demonstration is that the message is loud and clear. You know, students are united on this front in terms of wanting any tuition increase whatsoever. And although the minister wasn't there to take questions or provide a comment, I think they really did get their point across in a meaningful way. Ultimately, what they want to do is protect students and get the message out there so that, you know, folks across the province, students across BC, can get organized and get ready for a fight against any impending or imminent tuition increases.
The last time a government tried to raise our tuition, that was a fight that students won, and it is a fight that students will win again.
Protect students! Protect students! Protect students!